tuning in to the online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Oh yeah, hey guys, I think we got our song, but we're not quite sure. But anyway, welcome back to another AfterBuzz after show for High Profits. I think this has become our favorite after show, like overnight. It's been really amazing to talk about this show. We've had amazing people reach out from the show. Today we've got Patrick I don't know how to say his last name, but he's going to call in and I'm going to tell you how to say his last name. He's going to share all of his inside information with us. It's going to be awesome. I'm your host, Steph Z, and today on the panel we've got the lovely
Meredith Placco
and
Andrea Fasano. I'm back, guys. Hi.
I know, we missed you last week.
I missed you guys. You guys did an awesome show. Way to represent. I'm sorry I couldn't be here, but I'm back. Good.
Yeah. It's been really, really awesome. I feel like we've all gotten educated about this, and we all do come from different backgrounds and have different experiences with, marijuana and what it's meant and been in people's lives, which I think everybody does.
Yeah.
And, we touch on this again. One of the big things that we'll get into with this episode is this big council meeting. So we'll touch on that. We see, Katherine Grimm creeping in like the Grim Reaper a little bit.
Hey, Katherine.
And we love her. And
love
just
you.
so you guys know, next week, Katherine is going to be on our show. She's coming to LA, to the studio, so we're super excited about that. Again, we've gotten so much support from the show, from CNN Original Series. It's been really, really awesome. I believe we have Patrick on the line. Are you there, Patrick?
I am. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for calling. And I kind of mutilated your last name, so could you tell me how to pronounce that real quick?
It's all good. It's pronounced Candelas.
Ah, there you go. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Patrick, to all the viewers out there, is one of the co-executive producers, the showrunner. So, Patrick, you're kind of the man. You kind of got this project rolling, right? Tell us a little bit about why you, what was it about this situation, Brian and Caitlin, that drew you into, wanting to make this a docuseries?
Well, it was actually one of our executive producers used to have a house in Breckenridge. So he used to walk by BCC on Main Street all the time. And one day just decided to go up and see who owns this spot and see if there was a story there. So we started talking to Brian and Caitlin, and then we got together as a group at Bat Bridge and had some people go out there and meet them, and then we had a really long, kind of unique development process to figure out if this was a story that was interesting enough to tell, and were there good characters.
And clearly we see that this was, and it was an amazing story to tell, and I can't wait to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, really.
So in this particular episode 4, we'd love to get some of your inside scoop on some of the things that were really happening as opposed to what we as the viewers see happening. And I feel like this is a really good episode, actually, that you called in for, because they actually even mention in the town meeting that it must be great for you guys in the back filming. Were you actually there in that scene?
Right. Yeah, I was personally not in that scene when that was going on. I was back in Austin working with our amazing post-production team. But Gary Gallagher was the council member that said that, and Gary was initially very weary about being on camera, and it took quite some time to convince every member of the Breckenridge Town Council to talk to us on camera. They're all very nice people. They all, really believe what they are doing is in the best interest of the town. Just like anything else, those opinions on how to go about that, they vary severely. And yeah, at that moment in episode 4, everything kind of blew up. We were not expecting that at all to happen. We didn't think there was even going to be a vote, an issue, anything that went on in the series. We were not had no idea that was going to happen. So
Wow.
everything in episode 4 got a little crazy, and it surprised us all.
It was definitely good viewing for us.
Yeah. I think what I really liked. Hey, Patrick, how are you? This is Andrea.
Hi, Andrea.
How you doing? I think that what I really liked is even breaking of the fourth wall and how you guys kind of kept that in there when one of the board members turned around and was like, these cameras are loving it. We're giving them such a show. And you're like, yes, sir. Keep going, please.
It was interesting. I mean, the fourth wall was broken quite a few times.
Yeah.
It didn't make it into the final cuts as much as it actually happened.
I'm sure.
Because in Ep 4, what really happened was the BCC, when we started shooting, you see in episode 1 and 2, they were asked to leave, I believe it was in September, because they were there on Main Street for recreational sales for 4 years. And then we obviously shot the first day of recreational on January 1st, but they knew at that point, we're going to have to leave in September unless new people come into the council and they do a vote and reverse their decision to keep us there. So by episode 3, that council change has already gone through, and they had 4-3 vote for them to stay.
Right.
And then enter Katherine Grimm in episode 3. The first time we actually, as a crew, met Katherine was she was hired as a consultant by the airport road dispensaries, basically Brian and Caitlin's competitors in Breckenridge, to represent them, and they wanted kind of an all-or-nothing stance with pot shops on Main Street.
Right.
So they were upset you can't just have one. They wanted to have the access of all of them or kick Brian and Caitlin off and go to Main Street. So when that kind of happened, that started a whole nother debate in the town. Council members were very concerned that, they were legislating a monopoly essentially, and then it was okay. Well, let's look at bringing on airport road dispensaries on Main. Let's see what that looks like. That's what you see happen in F4 at the council. One of the council members, Mark Burke, says, "Is this real?" Like looking at the map.
Right.
He says that to the police chief when she's basically saying we could have one here, 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 and here. And that kind of freaked everybody out. Like, wait a second, we could actually have like 8 or 9 shops on Main Street.
Yeah. I mean, that's so weird.
When that got out, the town went kind of crazy.
So I have a quick question for you. And again, we only have watched up to 4. So we try and keep it kind of spoiler free so people can watch around with us. But if I'm understanding correctly, you guys didn't know Katherine until she kind of just appeared in the mix. She wasn't, when you guys went to do the project, you didn't know that there was this person that would come in halfway through. So did you kind of have to like shift and redirect in order to include her in this? Because again, as a docuseries, you're documenting it. It's not like there was a character that enter episode 4, Katherine walks in. So
right.
How did you guys, what was like the feeling of the crew? Were you guys excited like, ooh, who's this new person? Or was it like, okay, we got to figure out how this, what's happening?
Yeah, well, first, thank you all for actually correctly referring to the show as a docuseries and not as a reality show, because I grind my teeth every time I see that. Because we were, like you said, we were following this as it happened, so we did not know Katherine before we started shooting. We didn't work with Katherine in development. In fact, in development, we were trying to find people that were opposed to this entire, legalization movement in Breckenridge and pot shops being on Main Street. And we were essentially told, talking to the mayor for the first time and the police chief, I asked everybody, who is somebody that's upset about this? Who can we talk to? We want to cover both sides of this. Who is anti-marijuana in this town? And everybody kept saying, you're not going to find anybody.
Oh.
There's just, nobody's angry about this. Nobody's
That's
upset.
interesting.
Breckenridge is such a progressive place with marijuana. It's a ski town. It's a party town. It's known for that. So we were kind of going, okay. We'll see what happens. And then Katherine, first time we literally saw her is when she got up in town council, I think you see it in episode 3, and introduced herself as representing the airport road dispensaries. So at that point, we met with Katherine and said, can we interview you? Can we follow you as you're doing this for the airport road people? And she said, absolutely. And that totally just happened by accident.
Wow, that's really awesome that it played out. I'm sure you guys were like, awesome, the plot thickens a little bit. Meredith, what did you want to add?
Hey, Patrick, Meredith here. So as I actually worked in the news industry for the last 15 years, and something that actually drew me to High Profits is how it is a docuseries versus a reality show. And I actually wanted to kind of go on a more technical side and kind of talk a little bit about more of the challenges you guys face. Like you said, you didn't have Katherine Grimm up, on the roster beforehand. What were some of the other unexpected but possibly beneficial things that popped up during filming that you could say, speak of that maybe enhanced or even weren't presented as challenges? Because I think, this sort of programming is so new to many viewers. A lot of people are kind of asking the questions, and I really want people to understand that this is akin to a documentary of following, a group of people versus putting them in a forced situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole thing was a huge challenge, Meredith. It was constantly looking at the schedule, working with our team, figuring out what are we going to shoot, not knowing what's going to happen. We would meet with Brian and Caitlin regularly, meet with Katherine, meet with everybody that was involved and say, what is your schedule, what's coming up? And then we would all get together as a group and try to figure out. And at that point, we're all just guessing, how the storyline would unfold. Is this thing on Tuesday we're shooting? Is this on Thursday we're shooting? So there was plenty of days where we woke up and had no idea what we were going to shoot, what was going to happen. We just had the crew on standby waiting, which was terrifying.
Yeah, I know what that's like.
You guys, I just, you did a fantastic job putting this together. It's definitely something, and I was speaking to CNN last week about it, that, from my standpoint, you guys are putting something together that I think is compelling and entertaining and good television, and I'm really excited to see what you do from this point forward.
Well, thank you so much. We had a fantastic team in the field, and our post-production team was amazing as well.
I want to talk to some of the post-production, because the editing
amazing.
on that is fantastic, like the music choices and the bites you use.
Well, I think, too, one of the things that I love about this show, too, is it's interesting that you say it was hard to find people that oppose this, because I feel like it is such and for me, the reason why, it rings true as a docuseries is because you are showing both sides. Mm-hmm. There is a very middle. I get probably in talking to a lot of you guys all probably are pro marijuana and the legalization. You're not maybe against it. Maybe you guys are, maybe you're not. But it feels like it's a very story told from the midpoint. It's not like you guys are trying to get people to feel one way or another. You're just trying to show the situation so that people have more knowledge and education so that they can make their own choices. And for me, that's kind of why I'm so drawn to this, because I do feel like, this whole, discussion of marijuana, there is such a taboo still around it. And, you guys do show like you touch on a lot of different things, but it's not like,
right.
It's not just trying to force people to believe that it should be legal and they should be able to stay. And on top of that, go ahead.
No, we didn't. That was intentional.
Yeah.
Everything you're saying was something that we talked about beforehand. We did not set out to make a pro-marijuana, pro-legalization docuseries.
Yeah.
That was not the case at all.
And I think that's, apparent and clear, which is, again, I feel one of the best ways to educate people, because you can't force people. You just got to give them the information and then hope that, people get educated. Because I feel like a lot of people don't. They feel a certain way, and you see it over and over again in this town meeting. You see it over and over and over that people have these strong anti-beliefs, but they don't really know why.
Right.
There's no real tangible reason why they're affected or not. It's just they think this appearance, or they think it's going to make a town look a certain way, but it's all fear-driven or something that they've never experienced. So they want to shun it rather than learn about it,
It's really not a black and white issue, and that was something that we figured out right away, because I had no knowledge of the medical marijuana industry or how that worked or how insane the regulations were. And if you look at the town council, I think when they voted for Amendment 64 in Breckenridge, it was like 6-1 in favor. And the town has notoriously, all the votes, they had 3 different votes on legalization, and it was all 70-34. Which are insane numbers.
Right.
But even within that, when you allow the towns to try to regulate how that's going to work, that's where there's a whole lot of different opinions going on. And for us, we kind of found that with every step along the way when we were telling the story. I mean, one of my favorite points to show both sides is in episode 4, when you have the Iraq war veteran that comes into the shop who uses medical marijuana for his pain. And while he's talking with the bud tender, Sonny and some of the other guys, we're intercutting between, his last name I think was Doyle, but he was a lobbyist against marijuana.
Yeah,
and he makes some fantastic points comparing it to, look, if this is really going to be medicine, imagine if you went into a pharmacy and they said, what kind of Vicodin do you want today? You want the stronger one? You want this? And it was just really interesting when you hear everybody's opinions, and we definitely wanted to include as much of those as possible. And in fact, I think we used almost every piece of footage we had with people that were opposed to this. I mean, everything that we had, we put in, because it was so difficult to get people, especially who were opposed to legalization, to talk, because their fear is, like with reality TV, we're going to cut them in a way that makes them look stupid, or, if we don't agree with their opinion, we're just going to make them look bad to prove our point, which was something we were not going to do.
No, I think you guys did a very good job at not doing that. It's not like you're trying to dumb down the one opinion versus another at all, I don't think.
I think one of those things, I actually have a few comments. It's like you can't talk about the show and not talk about so many elements of it, because like you said, it's not just black and white. One of the funny things to me is it kind of sounds like anybody who does come out against it sounds like the dad from Footloose. I didn't get to mention that the first show, but that's exactly what it sounds like when the council's talking and some of the board members, what they say, if it is not irrational, but if it does sound ignorant, like they don't know, their stance really has to do with like the kids and teaching them, whatever. Right. So it's so Footloose reminding. But what you just said with that expert, Doyle,
Bob Doyle was his name. Is
that his name?
Yeah.
I think of Bob Dole. It's just so funny because I was watching that too, Patrick, and at first you kind of see what it says as his title, and then you're like, wait, which stance is he on? Because even he doesn't have a straight outright no marijuana, but he does make a good point where you go, yeah, who is going to be the one to kind of regulate it, and if it doesn't need a substance.
Right, but the pro and con of that for me is that if it was regulated, there'd be more doctors. Like, I've literally been to a neurologist that's told me, well, if this doesn't work, you should try it. Yeah. But I can't tell you how much or what to help, which is kind of, the flip side of that whole argument. It's I feel like the regulations and the government and all that is kind of hindering that process.
But that leads to so many other things too. Yeah. Like if you start regulating that and the amounts, and who's to say that what's good enough and what's not?
Meredith here. I'm going to jump in real quick because there was just an article put out this week in LAist that actually talks about California is going to be looking into voting to actually regulate medical marijuana, to open it up where the state will start issuing the dispensaries, and that they're going to actually have a medical board who will be in charge of looking at dosages and what people can take, which, I'm with Steph. I'm suffering from a great deal of neurological issues that I was just diagnosed with a very severe and rare form of migraine aura that I literally have been losing my vision since November. And my doctors are like, yes, we want to give you this really weird experimental blood pressure anti-seizure medication that could have all these terrible side effects. But you could also probably just go, like, we can't tell you to go do this, but there are other options for you, but we can't actually say them. And I think one of the things that I'm hoping, that I don't even hope, but I feel that with high profits getting the exposure out there, it's causing people to question the laws put in place, not just, in terms of like, where do you put your money, but looking at the regulation on the medical side, because I think once we do that, it's going to open up a lot of
minds.
Well, but it's just like that with anything. Like when you started with a drug of Vicodin, like how did they know how much a correct dosage is? I'm sure they had to do tests. I'm sure some people had got too much, some people got too little. I'm sure there was effects of that. But I feel like with this, there aren't many bad side effects of medical marijuana, so it's something that can be
And the fact that we can now take out the hallucinogenic properties and just take out the THC and just focus on.
I don't know that marijuana is a hallucinogenic.
I'm using the wrong phrase. I'm sorry, but it's not hallucinogenic. I'm sorry. There's I guess they removed the THC. I'm still learning. I'm very new to this world, so I'm still learning. Is it narcotic? The negative property of it that gets people
again, though,
high.
that's not negative. That's part of the way the conversation goes.
Okay, fair enough.
People, there's certain compounds in marijuana, and I'm probably the most familiar with this on the panel. There's certain compounds that cause you to, feel certain things that are, it's not a hallucinogen. I'm sure anything in doses, whatever, but it's not a negative thing because it's not, found completely addictive. Like there's certain parts, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, it takes out any of the things that make you quote unquote high,
and gives you the beneficial.
They give you the benefit of the cannabis.
Because to me, that would be. I mean, if I could drink alcohol and just feel happy, buzzed, as opposed to getting hungover, drunk, and sad, I would take a pill for that too.
But that's not what this is going to do.
I know, but that's what I love about the medical side of marijuana is that they can isolate. Let me rephrase what I said. They can isolate and target the medicinal properties and give those to people. Right now, though, it's not regulated, so I just walk into a store.
Alcohol, you can't take anything out of it, and alcohol's good for you.
No, it was a what-if situation.
Okay, got it.
It was in a sci-fi world where they have alcohol pills that just get you happy drunk and not sad drunk.
The blue pill or the red pill.
Yeah.
But the scary stuff about that, and this is what I'm saying about the regulations of the doses, the guy, Sonny, when he's talking about there's this kind, and it gives you more of an upbeat, I think regulating it is actually a bad thing for the industry because it's going to put a whole lot of, regulations, or give me another word, it's going to put a whole lot of stoppages on certain aspects of the industry, and I don't necessarily think that's a good thing because I think that's going to be federally run, and that's going to be based on money. What I'm talking about is literally medically, hey, this green bird is for this medical property. This will help you like this. Instead of just saying this will give you an upper, this will give you a downer, this will give you this. Figuring out what each strain does, I think would be way more beneficial.
I'm pretty sure they have
because of that. Well, that's
they have
great.
Knowledge on that.
But,
yes.
I mean, the whole point is that guy, even with him thinking that he's saying it negatively, if all he's saying is just, it's running the gamut with it just by letting it be free. I don't think he's necessarily against it either. Patrick, you were saying that nobody was really against it.
Oh, he's against it.
He is. Yeah, okay,
so he's super against it. I mean, but what he was saying was it's not. There's a difference between the medical marijuana movement and cannabis-based medicine.
Okay.
And he's saying those two things are different, and the way that they're being run are completely different. And that's a very interesting point.
Yeah.
He's not saying that there's not medicinal benefits to marijuana. He's just saying this isn't being done by doctors. This is being done by anybody standing behind a counter who's, giving you something as if they were a doctor saying this will help with this, this, and this. And there just isn't a whole lot of research right now that has been done on that to really back that up.
Yeah, it's very akin to going to the nutritional store with herbs and vitamins, and we know certain vitamins say things, but how many of those are federally regulated to do certain things? Will taking collagen vitamins really give me youthful skin?
Yeah.
And then again, the flip side to that is you have a war veteran that has a severe injury, spine being fused. He's saying this is what works for me better than anything else.
Knocking out 6
So in
bottles.
essence, and for me that was such a powerful statement when James Posey and even when Josie Posey was also there saying I'm going to get it for him so you can get relief. It's like in this country you can go and you can fight for us and you can be disabled for us. But you're not allowed to take the thing that's going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
How...
And
that sums up the whole situation.
Yeah, and it
for
seems
me.
way safer to me to say you smoke a joint or take some CBD chews to help pain versus popping 4 or 5 Vicodins, because 1, Vicodin is addicting, 2, the effects lessen the more you take it, and it boggles my mind that we have something that's within our grasp that can help so many people who suffer from so many different ailments, and yet we're not making a bigger push to discover this. Like, or
We're not, and we are, because
Yeah.
like shows like this, again, thanks Patrick, are starting this conversation.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have
thankfully
been,
that guy's
we
there.
wouldn't have been, and it's clear that we all have different views, and we wouldn't have even been talking about this if this show didn't exist. So again, we're so happy you guys made this show.
we might be high profit fangirls.
Yeah, I don't like to say fake.
Well, and then another angle with High Profits, the reason that we went with Brian and Caitlin and focused on them was Breckenridge itself.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of marijuana shows that have been done, a lot of them that have been done poorly, and it's kind of been stigmatized in the television industry as kind of a boring topic. And a lot have been done in Denver, but Breckenridge is a very unique town. It is a tiny town, 5,000 residents roughly. That's very progressive, party town, but at the same time, all of their economic revenue comes from tourism. So that is really like the wrench that's kind of thrown into this entire thing, because the town is very much pro-marijuana.
Yeah,
But
I've had
the money that comes with tourism is what really changes everything.
Yeah, 100%. I've been there. I've been snowboarding there a few times, and that's 100% correct. Like, it's crazy. And you're right. There have been a lot of shows, and I feel like people expect that. Like, when a lot of people hear about a show about marijuana, they think they're going to turn the TV on. It's just going to be a bunch of people being high, like eating Doritos and playing video games. And this completely is a smart show. And in that, I also love how this is a show about a business. So it's very it's underlying, it's the marijuana industry and the legalization of that, but we're also learning about the growing pains of a business. Meredith, what did you want to add?
I was just saying, well, it's interesting, you make the distinction that Breckenridge is a tourist town, and that marijuana, especially the open legalization going from medical to recreational, is such a big money grosser for them, that how much of the council is so set against it on Main Street. And I actually wanted to ask you, Patrick, some of your experiences in filming and storytelling wise. You mentioned how Gary was reluctant to talk on camera at first, but he obviously is the most opposed on the council, at least the most vocal, and how he actually, uses his weight as a council member and a member of the community to put pressure on other council members.
Yeah, it's interesting because they are all very, like I said, they're all pro-marijuana. The town itself is pro-marijuana. Gary was, it was getting anybody to talk on camera was really difficult. I had a harder time on this show than any show I've ever worked on getting people to agree to talk on camera. I was surprised by that. I don't really understand why. Again, marijuana apparently was a taboo topic. But for Breckenridge, they're a wealthy town. They're extremely wealthy. They don't need revenue. The revenue that they get from marijuana recreationally is a drop in the bucket. That tax revenue means nothing to them. So the biggest fear for the town is that they are going to offend tourists by having marijuana on Main Street.
Yeah.
And then
If they do that kills all that revenue that's coming into the town.
That's interesting, because the way you stated it, I feel that that hasn't been as. I mean, I get they say that on the show, the council members and other people have said that, but that the way you put it makes a lot more. Yeah, it's much more clear.
It makes a lot more sense as to why they wouldn't want them there. But for me, my thing, and I know that I touched on this last week when we had Lizzie on the show, was that for me, I feel like it's clear that whether it be today, tomorrow, whoever wins, whether Brian and Caitlin are there, they get kicked off or whatever, it's like eventually, no matter which way you slice it, this is going to be allowed. Like, they can't hold their ground forever, I don't think, especially with what's happening. So for me, it was just so interesting because Brian and Caitlin seem to be following all the rules, going to the extent of, even in last episode, of like kicking, a homeless guy off a bench in front of their store, like going, like they seem to be going above and beyond what's being asked of them to cooperate with the town. So for me, I would want someone, they talk about wanting to get this new location, the steakhouse, you know what I mean? Like, they want to do it right. They seem classy about their business. They seem very business oriented. So, so I feel like I would want them to be there.
The pioneers.
Yeah, like I would want them to be there, and I would almost protect it. And something, again, that I feel like is not touched upon a lot is what they did to risk to have that spot for when that legalization happened. So for me, I feel it's weird to me that no one brings that up.
Because they're thinking past that.
Yeah. Which is
Well, there's a lot more that's going to be coming out in the next few episodes after 4, but
okay.
I think Brian and Caitlin were pretty well liked around town.
Yeah.
Because of that. They're very smart. They're very ambitious. They conduct themselves very well. Very well in public. Their interactions with the council, they were doing things in the community. Their employees would go out and do community litter pickups and stuff like that. So they had a presence in the community, and everybody seemed to like them. The real issue, and you see it in Ep 4 towards the end with the council, was when the council started to consider having 5, 6, 7 potential pot shops on Main Street.
Right.
Everybody got upset.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, this can't turn into Amsterdam. We're going to destroy the town. So from that moment on, it didn't really become Brian and Caitlin as much as it did. If it's all or nothing, we're going to vote nothing.
Right.
And do you think that
So they kind of got caught.
And it was it Katherine that kind of shined that light on the
I'm gonna
council?
say, who did that?
Katherine. Yeah.
Yeah, Katherine was the one that really pushed, because she was representing. She was being paid by the airport road dispensaries.
Right. Which is interesting.
At the table, and we want all or nothing.
Which is interesting to me that Brian and Caitlin have been pretty much showing up and representing themselves the entire time, and the other stores didn't show up. They sent somebody on their behalf.
And the other stores refused to talk to us on camera.
Really?
I walked into their shops personally, asked them multiple times. We reached out multiple times to try to get everybody's opinion, and none of them wanted to be on camera.
Did they give you a reason why, or why do you think that is?
From what I was told and what I heard from a couple, everybody's afraid of the feds. They're just all afraid.
To look bad?
It's so weird. They're afraid of the feds coming in and busting them, even though they advertise in the paper. Everybody knows it's there.
Right.
For whatever reason, the cameras would show up, and
weird.
everybody would. nobody wanted to be on camera.
And
At all.
it's interesting because you guys, I feel, took a risk, a social risk, putting the show out there, because it does open this conversation that even as you're filming the show, people are still afraid to openly talk about marijuana. Like even when Steph came to me and was like, "Hey Meredith, do you want to do this show?" I was like, "Wow, is this gonna have a bad reflection on me?" And I'm like, you know what? I feel so strongly about this that we need to talk about it.
I felt the same way.
And I feel like, the conversation, good or bad, needs to be had. And I think it's really unfortunate that the other, marijuana shops, especially off of Airport Row, didn't feel that they should speak, because I think that would have helped ease the stigma that we have on this topic.
Well, yeah, and we wanted to know their opinion on it,
Yeah.
their take on it.
But-
And, unfortunately, we couldn't get it.
But luckily, it looks like you have a woman who's very vocal with her opinion.
Right.
Who spoke for them.
For them, all of them.
Katherine is very vocal with her opinion.
She's
She will answer you guys very honestly, I'm sure.
I know it's gonna be super fun next week. But you know what? In this episode, again, it's like I love her, but I want but I don't, but I do, but I don't. Of course I love her, but because she's smart. She's super
she
smart.
comes across very
What did y'all think about the end of the episode?
Well, I loved it, and for me, right before the end, when she's talking about the new warehouse and everything, I was just like, she's brilliant. Well, she doesn't the when she was like, I don't want to own 50 liquor stores, I want to own Coors, and the fact that she said Coors was awesome, Coors are Rocky, but it was like, duh.
But what confused me was that she went from representative to entrepreneur in that moment.
Exactly.
She wasn't just someone talking about helping other people. She's like, no, I want to cut this for myself.
She's brilliant. Oh, I got the chills. I can't wait. I love smart business people.
And that was something we didn't know about when we started shooting with Katherine.
Oh, and then...
It wasn't until later that we found out that she was actually had a stake in the business. And that you'll see much more of that in episodes after 4.
She played it so well.
She does.
And again, I feel like she's the one that is thinking, down the line. Like, when this stuff's legal federally, I want to be able to cross state line, because again, it's like, you're not going to have gardens popping up everywhere. You're going to have dispensaries. So where are they going to get this stuff? And if you've already established it, and if you've already done the testing and the technology or the science or whatever you want to call it to make these certain strains and to say this does that, she's going to already... why would you not go to someone that's already, it's been field tested pretty much?
Well, let's talk about the fact that she just introduced that, but we see in the same episode that Brian has to kill half of his, not half, I don't even remember
It was
how
20
many.
to 30%
so
of
much.
1,800 plants.
where his grower was just talking about how in a few months they're going to have like millions of dollars worth, and they had to kill them all off. And that's crazy because that brings the competition a little bit down for Katherine to then move in once they're ready. You know?
Well,
that was one of the craziest days of us shooting.
I'm sure.
I want to hear about that.
I know. I feel like you kind of like even you're on the. I don't know. I mean, I have nothing to do with the growing of marijuana, but I'm like, don't show it. Don't say anything. Just take the plants over there. Like, who cares?
Like, I don't want to see it put down.
That's again why I love Brian and Caitlin so much, because they're doing everything legit. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm a very honest person, but I don't know that I wouldn't have packed in a few plants in the car and taken them.
Are you kidding me?
You know what I mean? It's like they're taking their money like left, right, and center from they're giving money to people that don't support them. They're trying to kick them out, and it's like, what? Now you're gonna make me kill $1 million worth of plants?
And I'm going to actually ask this to Patrick, because my boyfriend asked just out loud when watching that, he's like, if the crew wasn't there, do you think they would have moved those plants under the cover of darkness?
No, Brian and Taylor wouldn't have done it.
That's fantastic. I mean, but that's so fantastic.
It is.
You know?
And that says a lot about him.
And it just, again...
It's not worth the risk.
Yeah.
I mean, you risk $1 million, worth of potential profit over literally losing your license.
Yeah.
To where you can never work in the industry again.
And it is.
So there was never any, they didn't struggle over that decision at all.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say that their commitment to this as a business is just so fantastic for me.
It's not for me. Yes, their commitment, but it's also their understanding. Their understanding that it's going to be new barriers. There's going to be growing pains. They're pioneering a new industry, so they know that this is what kind of happens. But again, it's like mentally and emotionally, the toughness that they have to have in order to day after day do something, or not day after day, but time after time do something that makes no sense and hurts their business for these people that again are going to hurt their business.
They don't understand
what they're showing is that not everyone involved with pot is a criminal. These are upstanding citizens who are working at this as an understanding and from a business point of view. They are not doing criminal activities. Like my boyfriend asked, they aren't choosing to just sneak a couple plants or like move them under the cover of darkness. They are doing everything legit and by the book. And I think that's a very important thing to show that marijuana can be a non-criminal activity.
Right, but in the same sense, I mean, not to completely just play devil's advocate, but look at why any law is, does there really need to be a drinking and driving law? Like, people should know that's a dumb thing to do, but it's like you have those people that don't follow the norm or don't have the common sense, so the law is always for the extreme people that are going to break it, rather than the laws aren't for the law followers.
Yeah, and,
they're for the law breakers.
And anyone can make a normal everyday business thing into a criminal activity. Money laundering, stocks. There's you could steal from the till at your coffee shop. But to take, what I'm saying is we're taking an activity that has so much negative stigma attached to it. When the general population thinks about going to buy marijuana, they think it's a shady deal on a street corner or some cartel. But these are people who are putting their life out there for all to see, that this is above the bar. It's on the level, and I think that's an important thing to take note of. That it's not just a bad. It's not just a negative criminal industry.
I think we should say on camera.
That's an amazing visualization of them destroying the weed. That's an amazing visualization of the representation of how crazy the regulations are in this business. That they had to do that.
And I think too, I hope we'll see those regulations change, because again, they do, when you have the beginning of anything, it's like they don't know, and no one knows. So it's like, it's in some ways too, you can't really fault all the laws that are being put in place, because they don't really, it's new for everybody. But that's just crazy. When you see them just shredding it up, you're just like, oh, that's those really growers happening.
Were like, that was like their worst day. Ever.
And it was just, if you take that to any business, if you, I used to work in the t-shirt industry, if someone came in and was like, or like water leak happened and destroyed that amount of stuff, that's just heartbreaking. And it's like, they just figured it out.
Yeah, totally.
So,
but I'm sorry, I just had to point out what Steph kind of wrote.
Steph has some very honest notes here.
very honest notes about the plant shredding. She was a little upset about it, and she wrote it down. So we're just putting that out
I
there.
have in bold $1 million bucks of plant shredding. Holy beep.
I thought that was awesome.
Well, but it's literally like, that's crazy. That would never. I mean, not that it would never fly. I'm sure it happens. But if you think about the fight that any other business owner would do if that was to happen, or if someone was to come in when they have so many laws that aren't really in concrete yet, and it's such a weird thing that's happening. If someone was to come in, I feel like most people would put up a fight against that, and they were just like,
they just
nope,
couldn't.
this is what we got to do.
Yeah.
Like, we got to just, swallow this one.
Brian's really smart in that fact that I feel like even dealing with the council, I mean, I loved when he called Gary Freeze out for being an illegal act by saying something.
Oh yeah, which was kind of
council.
awesome. He said, I have it written down here. He gets up, Gary, thank you for openly committing a class 4 felony by intimidating a public official with economic reprisal.
And you have the mayor calling, okay, Brian, let's not be cute. He's smart. Go ahead, Patrick.
No, but if you look at that, if you watch that scene, I mean, that was like what Gary said. I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to say anything legally with that, but it was right there on the line with what Brian accused him of.
Right.
And when you watch Elizabeth Lawrence, Ben Brewer, who's wearing red, right next to Elizabeth, and then Mark Burke, they flip out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Gary Freeze says that to Elizabeth because they're thinking the same thing that Brian's thinking. And John Warner, the mayor, kind of shut it down.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he actually should have shut that down.
Really?
Because that was a very big deal, a very big statement that Gary made.
I mean, it was
people
huge.
Were really upset on the council about that.
I like that he shut it down only for the fact that then if he did need to look into it or talk to him about it, I don't think it should have been done right there. But I thought that was good to kind of shut Brian up because it's not Brian's fight then. That's obviously more intense and more of a legal matter, I guess. But what I was saying about Brian is that he is smart enough. I think the mayor's really smart. You could just see these kind of calm tactics. So when people are naive and don't know their business or believe in what they're doing, they kind of get heated and raise their voices and they raise, you could just see the stress all over them. Brian stays really cool, and it just is a testament to what he believes in his business, what he knows, and if he doesn't know, he wants to find out. And I really commend him for that. And I'm going to say the same for Elizabeth, because even when she was called out, and we have to talk about her, but in this whole episode, but she stayed so calm too, and we saw the fight in her head about what to do because of her own life and business.
Am I the only one, and maybe I read this wrong, am I the only one that kind of thought Elizabeth was a little scandalous in the beginning when she was complaining about how much money Brian and Caitlin gave her?
She was just trying
I wouldn't say scandalous. I think she had expectations that she never made an honest voice to them.
But that feeds into what she's being accused of.
It does, but I think, she seems young. I mean, again, I don't know her. I only know her from the show. She seems young. She seems green. And having dealt with small town politics, it's very unfortunate because, there are things that people contribute. You contribute to a cause. What Brian and BCC did by contributing to her campaign, they didn't cross any legal lines. What they did was within the law of contributing. Her expectations were probably a little too much.
But she's getting $500,000 from some other contributors, so that's what she's thinking.
On the flip side, what Gary did and the weight him and his wife put on other people to not contribute for her job, the fact that they made a town politic issue into a personal matter attacking someone's job crossed the line.
Wrong.
And the mayor or other people, Elizabeth herself, she could bring that an issue and she could file a formal complaint and censor him for that, and he could even possibly, again, I'm not super familiar with law,
but again, yes and no, because I feel like she's almost by her saying that makes me feel like she's guilty of doing things for the people that bring in the money, which we see she did at the end of the day. She decides to, when she meets with, what was that other lady's name? When she meets with Aaron, she says that, I don't want to back off. Or even when she meets with Brian and Caitlin, she's like, if I back off now, what's going to happen next time and next time and next time? But then she ultimately winds up backing off.
How is this any different from lobbyists on Capitol Hill?
Dude.
Oh, it's
no
exactly
different. That's
politics.
what's so scary.
It's money and politics run it.
Patrick, I want to hear your opinion of that because you were there.
That situation was a messy one. It was kind of a unique situation for our crew because that whole thing blew up again after the council was considering adding more shops. And then this petition came out. And this petition came out among some very wealthy residents. And that thing gained a ton of speed in a matter of literally like a couple of days.
Wow.
And from our perspective, it was really interesting because Brian's hunting, they don't know what's going on. Brian and Caitlin had no idea that this wave of opposition was building at that time. And I had council members reaching out to me, literally saying, where the hell are Brian and Caitlin? Why are they not talking about this? Like, we're getting attacked left and right, and they're nowhere to be found. And it was interesting because I'm like, they just assume that everything I talked about with Elizabeth or John Warner or Katherine or whoever, that we're telling Brian and Caitlin that. Which
Right.
was not the case.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what we were talking to other people about. So Brian and Caitlin literally had no idea, and I'm telling council members, this is not my place to inform them as to what's happening in the town.
You're just
If
there
you guys
to
want to talk to
observe.
them about it, you have to do that, which was super strange.
Yeah, I guess it's where they didn't realize that you were doing a docu-series versus a reality show. They had these preconceived notions with how television works, and you were just there to observe and record.
No, plus it's a small town, so everybody
That's
talks
true. Everybody
anyway.
does that, yeah.
And they're thinking if they're not the ones to do it, then obviously someone else is, and that's not the case. So
Yeah.
I just thought it was so interesting. This was about one thing. Again, not black and white, but obviously it's about, trying to see if they should stay or leave Main Street. It turns into somebody bringing up the fact that what if there's 8 or 10 on Main Street, and then it becomes a political,
Battlefield.
battle.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with that kind of. And it does get intense, and it does show true colors of some people, like Elizabeth when she's going back and forth and kind of, you do feel for her because she's talking about her family and how she's being attacked because of her job. And this has been,
I'm not saying that I would I haven't been in her position, so I'm not saying what she did is wrong. I'm just saying that it seemed a little scandalous to me that
teetering 'cause she was scared.
But if Brian and Caitlin would have gave her $100,000, would she have stood her ground? For me, that's a little bit when you enter it in that way, it's not as legit as some of the other council members keeping their opinions.
Exactly.
You know what I also thought was really interesting? The back and forth was between Katherine and Mike Durick or whatever.
Dick.
Yeah. How she was pretty much being like, well, now who do I support?
Yeah.
So she was contemplating supporting the people and wanted to support the people that were anti-marijuana because Brian wanted to fight it alone. So that was a really interesting situation as well.
Something
It's
we're
like,
gonna have to talk to her about.
I can't wait.
I know.
Yeah.
It's too much. We're going to need 2 shows with her. I know.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll just go longer. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And you see Katherine you see her making her way. She meets with Mike, she meets with Elizabeth, she finally meets with Brian as well. She's kind of making her rounds. She's got a bigger plan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And she doesn't really
Much more to
expose
come on
too
that.
much. Yeah, she doesn't expose too much of her side and her opinions.
No,
so-
she's keeping her cards close.
She's very
She's
smart.
just like, let me see your cards.
You're right.
What do you
Yeah.
got over there? All right, cool. How can I use yours to benefit my hand? All right, sweet. I'll see you later. That's what she's doing, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
It makes for good, business and for good television.
Yeah.
All right, what else? Was there anything else on this episode that anyone, wanted to touch on before we wrap it up here? Anyone?
No, I mean we covered the politics, the council meeting. That was kind of my big sticking point for this episode.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else I wanted to? It's funny how something that came up for me, and maybe like you guys seeing it there, Patrick, you can tell us a little bit about that. All these regulations for like the labeling, and all this stuff that happens at the the BCC garden and also happens in the store. It's like they don't have these regulations, but they do. So, and I almost felt like they're trying to put these things in place to make it harder for these people, because you see the scene with Josh from the BCC saying like the state system and the point of sale system aren't matching up. I feel like they just keep making them jump through hoops to see if they're a legit enough business to be smart enough. It's like they're almost trying to fail them on a technicality rather. Was that a feeling at all?
It's a combination. It shows just how insane the regulations are, that they have to track every plant from seed to sale. And update it daily at the end of business every day. And we interviewed in episode 4 Louis Koski, who's the head of the MED. He's the guy that runs the entire marijuana.
Yeah.
He oversees all of it in Colorado. And part of their being that stringent and tracking it from seed to sale is the government is learning what they can expect so that they can catch things that they will know in the future should not be happening.
All right.
So
that's
how long does
fair.
it take
That's
to go
fair.
from seed to sale? How much, patterns and sales trends and how much is going out the door and how that works, because they're trying to figure that out so that they can make sure cartels aren't getting involved, black markets not seeping through. So it's insane, the amount of regulations that you have to deal with and the amount of taxes that these businesses have to be paying over right now.
Which is kind of, again, I go back to, and maybe I'm just too much of, an open thinker in the fact where it's like, I feel like the government and these places would want these businesses that now they know are legit, like Brian and Caitlin's stores, and a few of these businesses where they can be like, hey guys, let us, implement these rules for you guys so that we can see where we're wrong rather than assuming that you're wrong.
Well, and it just seems like Colorado is kind of the testing ground for this, because I think more states every year vote to legalize marijuana on a recreational level, and I think we're going to see more in the next voting season too. And I think we can learn a lot from the good and the bad with Colorado. And it is important that they do this because even in any legit business, criminal elements can get involved. And I think especially with this and with how close we are to a lot of the cartel issues down in Mexico, it is very important that they keep a strict eye on this. I mean, that's something I've seen firsthand out of Mexico, what happens there. And I think having the government regulation is only a smart thing. And if it has to be really stringent and strict right now, it's only to understand and make a better policy down the line.
I agree with what you're saying, but what I'm saying is the approach can be very different. The approach cannot be that we're being so strict on you because we assume that you're doing something wrong.
But we're just seeing what's happening in Breckenridge. We don't,
Right.
As the show states, that every city has its own, they're
Rules.
regulating it themselves. So am I correct
Right,
in that,
but
Patrick?
The inventory is state mandated. though.
Okay.
All
Okay.
the
Okay.
tracking systems, that's all run through the MED. So every recreational shop has to do that
Gotcha.
exact same thing
Yeah.
with their inventory.
Inventory versus like everything else that should be
That's what I'm
regulated
saying.
or should
So it
have
is,
something to do with it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I would, in a perfect world, that relationship could be, like, I feel like, again, anything that the BCC or whoever doesn't abide by these regulations, these tagging, they'll get in trouble. But if, they are doing everything right and it gives some sort of information feedback where the state is like, oh wait, we shouldn't do it this way because it doesn't make sense, they're not going to get in trouble.
I wonder how it compares to how the pharmaceutical industry is regulated.
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother.
No, I'm just saying. I'm
like,
just,
that's
it's just
a
a
whole
question.
other
Yeah.
show,
But
yeah.
no, I'm just saying in terms of how inventory is tracked. Like say, a Vicodin,
Pills.
pill drug, or even Sudafed. How over the stuff you have to go. You can't just buy over the counter. You have to show your ID. I wonder how marijuana is tracked in relation to those. If they kind of develop their plan based on that. It's a question I don't know the answer to.
I just think something that makes this show so great is that this business or industry is going to move so fast. And if this exposes anything, it's hopefully that anyone in charge understands how fast they have to move with regulations on every part of it. And I'm not saying to regulate every part of it. Sometimes maybe that's not the best answer for this business. I just think that this exposes that and makes people, you better start thinking out there, lawmakers and everybody involved, because, and not for nothing, we have the right to vote for people that we agree with. And, politics, I want to like literally strangle money and politics. Like that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
But, it just opens that conversation. It's going to have to move fast. That's it.
It's going to move, well, I don't know. I feel like, yes, it's going to move fast, but I feel like the government or the regulators of this stuff are going to make sure that they do it in a way that benefits them. So I don't think they're just going to throw out a bunch of regulations that don't make sense for them. Because, it's been, over a year now, and that's a lot of time, and they didn't move so fast because they're still,
they keep
changing things.
Extending their the Main Street business,
So
proposition.
It goes back to the whole not being black and white. You'll see
Totally.
in episodes coming up, we talk to a whole lot more law enforcement, a whole lot of other people, and there's
Oh, that's cool.
a lot of twists and turns in these episodes coming up.
right.
Awesome. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for calling and talking with us. If you would like to call back, we'd love to have you.
Thank y'all so much for talking about the show. Really appreciate it.
It's hard to not talk about it.
It is. I remember seeing, I was actually, it was in April, I guess, when I saw the first, CNN thing that this show was going to happen. I was like, oh my God, I want to cover this show. Like, what do I have to do? And I wrote AfterBuzz an email. I'm like, hey guys, I know we don't really cover a lot of shows like this, but I want to do this one. And we got a panel together. So it's been a really, really fun ride. And we appreciate you guys reaching out to us and, coming on the show and all the support we've got from you guys to make our show as legit as possible. So, again, we'd love to have you back, maybe the finale or something like that. And are there any other projects you'd like to tell people that you're working on, or tell the people where they can find you on social media to keep up with you?
Yeah, the company's called Batbridge Entertainment. That's probably the best way to find me, through that and our company. We're working on a lot of stuff right now, but unfortunately, I can't talk about any of the things that we're working on.
Sweet. Well,
I need a job
cool.
if you
I'll
need
say
any
that.
producers.
Cool.
I need a
cool.
job.
So we'll keep it, the conversation going, and hopefully we'll be able to cover some of those shows as well. And again, thank you so much for coming. And until next week, Andrew, where can the people find you?
Hey guys, find me at Andy Fasano, A-N-D-I, my last name Fasano. Instagram, Twitter, and Periscope, actually. I've been doing some of that.
All right.
And you can always find me on Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, and most social media at mplaco.
Sweet. And you guys can keep this conversation going with me at IAMSTEFZ. And guys, check out, we have a lot of really cool things going on here at AfterBuzz TV. We've got, I don't know if you guys heard, but Maria Menounos, the CEO of AfterBuzz TV, she has created this new show called Dance Battle. I have actually been privy to be there for the filming of some of this stuff. It's super awesome. It's like on the holidays, you get together with your friends. Anyway, this show has become an ABC show. So you guys can go, you guys can join, you can show your videos. They pick people. You gotta Google it. It's Dance Battles. It's awesome. There's a lot of buzz around it. The Huff family, a bunch of them have gotten together. It's
When
really,
we say
really
dance
fun.
battle, we're talking like West Side Story dance-off battle? Because that'd be awesome.
I've seen it on Instagram. They do it for Christmas and the holiday season.
Nice.
It's pretty
Yeah, we
awesome.
did it for Memorial Day.
How
It was
fun.
super duper fun. So you guys can all go to dancebattleamericacasting.com to get involved. You and your family. Get it together, get your little outfit on, little dancing. I'll be on your team. I need a new team. No, and make sure you keep subscribing to our YouTube channel, Podcast One, iTunes, everywhere you can find us. We love your comments and questions. Thank you again, Patrick, for coming on our show, and we will be here
thank you
next
so
week
much.
in the studio live with Katherine Grimm. We're super pumped. Until next
Katherine.
time.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.